Okay, I'm going to try to wrap up my discussion of my innovation, the amplified circle of fifths. Try to wrap it up if possible. We talked about how the amplified circle of fifths has an outer major ring, all right? And the accordion has an outer counterbass row, all right? And you might notice that in the counterbass row, let's say you have your C bass and your E counterbass, you have an interval of a major third. And in the amplified circle of fifths, you have an interval of a minor third. That's the main feature of this whole new pie chart, pie and donut chart. Well, you say, why the difference? Well, the major third interval is the first third interval featured in a harmonic series. Now we're using the sample, it's a fundamental of C2, but your major third interval comes first, then your two minor thirds. And the reason why we have this minor third here and the major third here is because it works. It's that simple, it works. You see, the harmonic series is natural. No matter what kind of music you make or sounds you make, sounds you generate, this is natural. It just happens. It just is. This is man-made. So we have to devise. We have to think it through. We have to figure it out and come up with a system, a symbol that relates to the sounds that we hear. So we go from natural, perfectly natural, to man-made, and we do the best we can. We just do the best we can. So there you have it. You have your counter bass concept here, and you have your counter major data ring concept here. All right. So that's done. Now, when it comes to using the amplified circle to its maximum, I told you that you can determine which flats you need for your keys and which sharps you need. And the key point to remember is these letter names here. The letters actually are the flats, and these letters actually are the sharps. You don't need that symbol on there. You don't need that because the letter tells you which sharp it is. The letter tells you which flat. In the sense of signifying and determining your sharps and flats, the inner diminished data ring all of a sudden turns into the actual flats and the actual sharps itself. All right? So I wanted to review that. And part of the problem with the offset here, the reason why we need the offset is because the illusion of the key of C. And that's because if you have a system of keys and key signatures, and you have a so-called key that can't have a key signature, how can it be a key? If you have an entire system that's based on each of the other keys, in other words, each key is a benchmark for something else. Well, then if you have a so-called key that doesn't have a key signature, an identifying signature, how can it literally be a key? And the key thing here, pun intended, key thing is when you look at the letter C, the key for the tone C, here it is, the key for the tone C, psychologically, remember psychology comes into play when I devise systems and concepts. C, we're supposed to be seeing, we're supposed to look at this and see something. I told you that I told our children during homeschooling, if you don't get it, just keep looking at it. Keep looking at it till you see it. Either externally you see it or internally you see it with the brain, with the mind. See, vision, it means the same thing. It means see, it's the same word. And over here, you see with the eye. And you're sitting there watching this video thinking, well, I this, I that, oh, I like that video, or I don't like that video, or I don't care. But either way, you think it's I, you think it's singular, all alone. You're all by yourself in your own little mind. but we're always seeing, always seeing. In fact, in the dictionary, if you look at the first common noun, is the word each, singular, singular. All right? And then the last word in the E letters in the dictionary, last common noun is I. But see, it's an illusion also. But Jesus and Buddha both taught the same thing. Once you get vision, once you start to see with the eye, whether it be the inner eye or the outer eye, you'll see that we're all the same eye. It's all the same. There's only one eye. There aren't individual this, individual that. That's another illusion. And so, keeping psychology in mind, you say, what does it have to do with the amplified circle of fifths? Well, I told you that I referred to the mandala. A mandala is something that you draw. Here's one. Here's a mandala. In fact, nowadays, in these modern times, people can buy coloring books. Adults can buy them. Here's one. These are my wife's books. And here's another one, mandalas. And she colors them. And she does nice work, by the way. Here's a recent one. I didn't ask if I could show these. She's going to yell at me. She'll say, "You Joe, you bad boy." And here's another one here. See, she did a nice job. But anyway, these books now are very popular, and adults find themselves coloring. And it's not so much a regression back to childhood. It's the fact that the mandala is a symbolic. It's a symbolic picture, and the act of drawing the mandala, all right, is also a symbolic metaphor for individuation. In other words, our growing, learning, evolving, and trying to become that illusional individual and become one with the self with the capital S, the big self, the one. We go from the lowercase self, the illusion of singular I, to the whole completed thing. And that's what the mandala represents. It represents the whole completed thing. So the point is, the mandala, drawing the mandala, all right? Drawing the mandala, or drawing and finishing the circle of fifths, which started hundreds of years ago, okay? In other words, drawing, coloring, creating the circle of fifths is not unlike drawing a mandala, all right? Now, drawing, the actual act of drawing is the recognition and conscious integration of the contents of the collective unconscious. The recognition and conscious integration of the contents of the collective unconscious. So you see this original pie chart, circle of fifths, though it was very useful for the longest time, really was very elementary, very primitive, and in my mind, to me anyways, it had to grow. It had to grow and go through the individuation process and become a complete mandala. That's the whole idea here. So I don't know if I've done it. I don't know if it's done growing. Maybe somebody will take this and say, "Well, Joey, I can make this better. I can do better than that." They'll say, "Oh, that's just a bunch of crap." But I think so far it's pretty good. I think it's very, very useful. So that's part of the psychological aspect of my approach to the amplified circle of fifths. Now you say, "Well, that's a bunch of crap." Well, there's so much psychology in this, and I won't go on and on, and it would take me 25 minutes. But I want to show you another psychological feature. When you have your, let's say you take a slice out of the chart, all right? I just take one slice. You could be any slice, right? You take a slice out, and you blow it up, all right? You make it bigger, you amplify it, right? So you can see it better. Let's say you have your subject slice, right? That's one of my innovations, the subject slice. We learned that when I did my blues videos. And you see here, you have the tone E flat. That's in your outer major ring. And you see here, you have the tone E flat. Right, it's the same tone here. you have that. Let's go back to the big chart. You have that in your minor data ring, all right? But the point is, the key point is, you have your tone here and you have your tone here, but you see something psychological. You see, if this is your black hole, this is on a lower level here. This is on a higher level of consciousness. So in essence, psychologically, your data rings could theoretically represent different levels of consciousness. And you say, well, I don't believe that. That's a bunch of crap. Well, okay, let's look at it again, even deeper. Here you have in your major data ring, right, in your subject slice, the tone C. Here you have, all right, let me show the big chart again. Here you have, all right, in your major data ring, for your aggregating slice, all right, you have the tone F sharp. Well, that is the augmented 4 interval that I mentioned in the beginning, the one we would consider when we research and we plan and we try to make a brand new circle of fifths. Well, if you say there's no psychological connection or there's no significance psychologically, I say no, because for hundreds of years, this interval from C to F sharp, as our example, was referred to as the Diabolus and the Musica. Latin, Diabolus and Musica. It was referred to as the interval of the devil. The devil's interval. So even back then, hundreds of years ago, now this term actually popped up in the 1700s, but they had been referring to this interval, been referring to this long before that as the devil's interval. So you see, even back in the day, when most people were uneducated and pretty stupid, they even psychologically read into music, the sounds, the notation, they read into it, and they thought they heard things. They thought they saw things. But anyway, that's the psychology part. I think I pretty well covered the key points, and I can get away from this. But if you want to copy this, make your own, then I wish you well, because I really like it. You know, I'm partial to my own devices and systems, but this is what we call the amplified circle of fifths. Because after 342 years, I thought, you know what? What do we have to lose? We can take the old crappy old circle of fifths, which hardly has anything in it, and we could bring it to life. And that's actually the whole idea of most of my systems. Even my staff notation system and my new clefs, I'm actually trying to keep traditional devices, instruments and notation and ideas alive by using just a new perspective. It's the same old stuff, but we're seeing it differently. We're trying to keep it alive. We're trying to keep it alive because even now out there, there's a lot of instruments now that are either, let's say, chromatic or whole toned. And for example, let me just tell you, there's this company, Dodica, and they make an isomorphic keyboard. And the keyboard is uniform. Uniform keys, not like the keyboard we're used to. And then there's the whole tone or chromatic keyboards, which are all just the same, basically keys or buttons all the way across the instrument. So I'm trying to hold on to the old to save it by simply using a new perspective. That's it. I apologize for always taking too long, and I apologize for being repetitious because we used to homeschool and we had to repeat. But I will not apologize for my content because you're not going to hear it anywhere else. And I'm the guy who finds things that people miss. And I hope it's of some value. That's it. Hope to see you on a different topic. Good night.